Okay. Up next is Nadia Keshodkar. Nadia is my best friend since 7th grade. And we've known each other, or we've been in each other's weddings. And when I found out I was pregnant, she was actually the first person I told before my husband. She's been my mommy guru through the pregnancy, and Emmy and I wouldn't be here without her. So, of course, I begged her to be in this reading. So, here is her bio. Nadia lives in Long Island City with her husband, Kareem, and 2 boys, Eli and Issa. She is a stay-at-home mom primarily, but also works per diem as a social worker. She doesn't consider herself a writer, and this is the first story she has written, so go easy on her. She would like to thank Lynn for her help and support and for giving her this opportunity. Please give a round of applause for Nadia.
Hi. I can't really pinpoint when I knew I wanted to be a mother. I grew up in New Jersey to Pakistani parents, but I don't remember being one of those young girls at age 4 or 5 saying I want to be a mommy. I do remember 2 friends and I formed CPS Productions in Mrs. Sylvester's 10th grade English class. We used to make skits for class projects based on books that we read. In a skit about the American dream, we created a scene where we look at our future selves. I was married and a mother to 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. I always thought having 4 kids was the ideal. My journey to motherhood started 2 years after getting married. I was 28 years old at the time. For some reason, I always had it in my head that I wanted to have my first kid before the age of 30. I don't really know where this idea came from. In Pakistani culture, women tend to get married early, even though I was considered old at 26, and have kids pretty soon after getting married, so maybe I was unknowingly influenced by this expectation. But nonetheless, I was ready to make it a reality. I figured if we start trying to conceive in 2006, I would have the baby before my big 3-0 in August 2007. I tackled any difficult situation like my dad always taught me through knowledge gathering and education. I concluded that it would take us about 6 months to conceive. Wrong. I got pregnant in early August within the first month of trying. Even though we were planning, it took us a bit by surprise. We even did 3 pregnancies tests to make sure, and I made my husband Kareem go out and buy the tests where you can read the words pregnant and not pregnant, just so I knew there was no mistake. Sure enough, I was pregnant, and I thought, wow, that was easy. We had already planned a 2.5-week trip to Southeast Asia at the end of the month, and I would only be about 5 weeks pregnant at the time. Since there is no chapter about traveling to Asia and what to expect when you're expecting, I started to feel a little nervous. We made a doctor's appointment early on just to make sure everything was all good before we left for the trip. The doc confirmed once again with a blood test that I was indeed pregnant. It's so crazy how hearing those words or seeing the test results can really change things instantly. I started thinking all baby stuff, like getting a nursery together and buying all these cute little baby clothes. It was like being 10 years old again right before our Eid holiday. The due date was May of 2007, the best weather month in New York City and right around Mother's Day. It couldn't be more perfect if I planned it. We returned from our trip in early September with no issues. I must admit I was a bit upset about not being too adventurous in eating all the street food in Bangkok or the crabs in Singapore, but I didn't want to take any chances of harming the baby. We go back to see Dr. Wong on September 21st to hear the baby's heartbeat for the first time. We go into the exam room and Dr. Wong gets the ultrasound machine out and attaches it to my belly. We are anxiously staring at the monitor, waiting to hear our baby. She then says, "I'm sorry, I can't find the heartbeat." Here I am, so naive, I just thought she meant she couldn't find it today, as in it was too early. So I said, okay, maybe at the next appointment. This is when she clarified by stating that there will not be a heartbeat. Her words sunk in like a rock. I had miscarried the baby. The baby was 9 weeks at the time. I had no clue that something like this could happen. I always thought that miscarriage meant bleeding and cramping, and since I didn't have any of those symptoms, I didn't realize that there were other ways that women can miscarry. I later learned that this is what doctors call a missed miscarriage or spontaneous abortion. I just sobbed. Kareem put his arms around me and we hugged each other tightly, but at that point, nothing could take away the pain that I felt. And in one instant again, your life changes immediately. I remember feeling so many emotions during that time. I was angry at the whole situation and started playing the victim and thinking, why me? There was also an overwhelming feeling of sadness at the same time. I had a hard time talking about it to anyone. The miscarriage happened right around the time of my 11-year high school reunion. I thought of canceling, but Kareem insisted that we go as planned. We had planned to make a night of it with my two best friends, Lynn and Shayla, and Kareem thought it would be a good idea to spend time with friends. But I couldn't even talk to Lynn and Shayla about the miscarriage or the pain and sadness I was feeling. I was afraid of crying and breaking down about it, so it was easier to keep it to myself. I also felt guilty about it and thought if I did things differently, maybe I wouldn't have miscarried. My family was trying to be supportive, but up until that time, we never had to deal with death or grief in our family. Regardless of their supportive words and thoughts, I wasn't able to see anything positive about the situation. Since I didn't miscarry naturally, we were given the option to have a D&C procedure. We opted for this since it gave us the opportunity to do genetic testing to determine if there was any abnormalities that caused the miscarriage. It turns out that the baby had an extra chromosome, and the doctor said it was the body's way of not bringing an unhealthy baby into the world. We also found out through the test that it was a baby girl. For the next few months, I had a hard time accepting the reality. I'm not an extremely religious person, but I started feeling angry at God. I questioned why me and started thinking about all the things I did wrong to cause this to happen. I started reading about miscarriages in hopes of trying to find some answers or closure. I purchased a bracelet from a website devoted to miscarried babies. I named a star after our baby girl, but I still couldn't find that peace. A lot of my friends and family were having babies around the time, and it was hard for me to really be happy for them. I can think of just 4 friends off the top of my head. Moni, Amina, Uzma were all having girls, and my friend Neela was having a boy. I even had to stop attending some of the baby showers because it was just too difficult. I hated attending family functions or community events because it's typical in Pakistani culture for aunties to be nosy and question why I'm not pregnant yet. I couldn't bear hearing that question or trying to explain my situation, so I just avoided those get-togethers at all costs. One weekend we were in New Jersey visiting my parents, and my mom was making palak gosht, one of my favorite dishes. I got upset at her, and when she said that I got upset at her when she said that we can always try again and that it was meant to be because God knows best. I was crying and asked her if she ever had a miscarriage. When she said no, I told her she would never understand what I was dealing with. How could she tell me it was for the best when she had no idea what I'm feeling or going through? I was angry even at Kareem, who seemed to be over it, and I couldn't understand how. But after a few months, I was able to move on. I don't think you ever get over it, but I was able to try again. So in January of 2007, we started our baby making once again. I assumed that because it happened so quickly the first time around, that it would be the same the second time too. Wrong again. It was now June 2007, and we had tried for 6 months with no success. We decided to go to an infertility specialist who told us to try again for another 6 months, and if no luck, then to come back. Sure enough, a year had passed and we were back in our office. She did all this testing on us only to tell us that everything was normal and we had what was called unexplained infertility. I don't even know what that means. So there I was, researching again, trying to understand what it was and what caused it, since I was able to get pregnant naturally before. I started getting a little crazy, scouring websites, reading blogs day and night. I would not let go until I had a satisfactory answer. I learned, though, that there was no answer. I still do not know to this day what changed in my body that caused me not to conceive naturally after my miscarriage. It was 3 years of going to countless appointments at the infertility clinic, trying different procedures and medications, running further tests, and even taking a break from it all and going on vacation as the doctor suggested, because she thought maybe if I was less stressed, things would happen naturally. No such luck. It was March of 2010 that we decided to do IVF. This was basically our last hope to get pregnant. Here's the lowdown on IVF. Big needle injections, countless doctor appointments, eggs out and in, and a lot of pain. You then go to the clinic for a pregnancy blood test in the morning, and they call you that afternoon with the results. I remember getting that phone call but not being able to answer it because I was too nervous to hear the results. I waited until the voicemail came through and then called Kareem. I checked my voicemail, and great news, I was pregnant. It was April 2010, 4 long years after my last pregnancy. And in that instant again, our lives had changed. The first few months of the pregnancy were particularly scary, and I worried about miscarriage constantly. I remember anxiously sitting in the IVF clinic on my last day there, thinking that the doctor was going to tell me that the baby had no heartbeat. I was scarred from the miscarriage and expected to hear the same news. I kid you not, throughout my whole pregnancy, even at the very last doctor's appointment, I feared the doctor was going to tell me that there was no heartbeat. The rest of the pregnant went pretty smoothly, minus the severe all-day sickness, until one of my last doctor appointments before giving birth. The baby was due January 19, 2011, and there I was in the doctor's office on January 21st, still pregnant. At the appointment, they found that I had high blood pressure and something in my urine, which was the first time throughout the whole pregnancy. And since I was past my due date, they sent me to the hospital to be monitored. I was admitted that Friday morning, and they started the induction process. After 12 hours, the doctor came in to talk to me about the possibility of having a C-section since I was not dilating. I always assumed that I would deliver vaginally, so I never even thought about the idea of a C-section, but it looked like we had no choice. We accepted our fate, but then got thrown in for a loop when the baby's heartbeat became irregular due to a fever that I developed a little after 2 a.m. Because of that, we had an emergency C-section and things started moving lightning fast. My baby boy, Elijah, was born on Sunday, January 23rd, 2011. The nurse brought him over to me and said, "Technically, I shouldn't be doing this, but I just wanted you to see your baby boy before they whisk him away to the nursery." It wasn't the NICU, but not the normal nursery either. I wasn't able to hold him on my chest or start breastfeeding right away. Elijah was born at 2:53 a.m., and I wasn't able to hold him until that night around 7:30 p.m. I didn't even know how to hold him, let alone feed him, while dealing with my fresh C-section wound. We left the hospital after 4 days, but since Elijah was started on antibiotics, he had to stay in the hospital for a total of 7. I never imagined leaving the hospital without my baby. I was crying the whole night. And we visited for the next 3 days, but it did not feel right. He should have been at home with me. But now, as I look back as a mom of 2 boys, Elijah's now 6 and Issa's 3.5, I learned a lot from my journey to becoming a mom. I realized that things don't always go as planned, and although it's hard to accept the reality at the same time, things always seem to fall into place at the end. It's just like my mom always said those years ago, that things will work out for the best in the end. I couldn't understand that at the time, but she was right. Moms are always right. It did all work out in the end. This is my story, and I don't know anything else. I don't know if things would necessarily be better if it went according to my plan. Who knows? I was the one who wanted 4 kids, the first one before the age of 30, a baby born in May, and a baby girl, but none of that happened. That was not my perfect. But this is what I do know. I still miss my baby girl, and every May I think about how old she would be, 10 years old this month, and what kind of person she would have been. I sometimes feel a little twinge when someone unknowingly and in good faith asks if we plan to have another baby to try for a little girl, because they don't know my story, and that's okay. But I already had that little girl. My perfect is to be a mom to these 2 wonderful boys that I can't imagine my life without. Thank you.